Do you have a suggestion for a Rockstar Impact Podcast guest? Go to impactpodcast.com and just click Be a Guest to recommend someone today. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent, for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. This is a very exciting edition because we're so honored to have with us today Steve Scott. He's the author of this great new book, Hey Tiger, You Need to Move Your Mark Back, 9 Words That Change the Course of Golf Forever. Welcome to the Impact Podcast, Steve Scott.
No, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Steve, we're going to get into the book and a lot of issues today. But before we get going, talk a little bit about where you grew up and how you got into golf just to start with.
Yeah, for me, I mean, my dad got me into the game when I was young, and he cut a putter down for me when I was 5 years old. And I just loved the game. I took to the game. I was, in a team sports setting, I as a young person, I was the ball hog. I wanted to play. I wanted the ball all the time. So in golf, you always have the ball. And so I was able to have the ball playing golf, and I just kind of ran with it. And you're able to practice by yourself if you want. And, you don't have to rely on other people to pass you the ball, or, you could have a great game as an individual, but the rest of your team is not good and you could lose. And in golf, I mean, you do lose more than you win, but you can still get out of it really what you put into it in a lot of ways. So that's why I loved it. And, grew up in South Florida in the Coral Springs, Fort Lauderdale area, and went to high school down there, went to college at University of Florida. And it was a great place to get into the game, and definitely credit to my dad for doing that.
You wrote this book, which I want to get into. Hey Tiger, you need to move your mark back. For those listeners and viewers, and I'm not a golfer, but I'm a huge sports fan. And I was just introduced to your story about 7 months ago. Bought the book, read it, loved it, invited you on the show, and thanks to your graciousness, you came on today. Go back to 1996, and it's so well done in the book, but I want it to come from you. Explain where we're at. Tiger has a chance in 96. You're playing for the U.S. Amateur Open Championship. He could win his 3rd in a row. You're the Cinderella story, and give our listeners and viewers a little bit of how the 36 holes went.
Yeah, it was really a David versus Goliath sort of scenario, right? It was Tiger Woods was going for his 3rd straight U.S. Amateur. He had done everything really he'd ever really wanted to do in the amateur game. Nobody in history of golf had ever won 3 U.S. Amateurs. Not Jack Nicklaus, not Arnold Palmer, Bobby Jones. Nobody had ever won 3 in a row. And so the only guy in his way was 19-year-old me. I was just going to my sophomore year of college at University of Florida. I mean, it was I was pretty unproven at that time. I had a couple of good finishes that year, but I'm 19 years old. I mean, I didn't have a lot of experience, and all of a sudden I'm thrust into this moment where the world is watching, where there was millions watching on television. We got better ratings for that match than the PGA Tour did that Sunday afternoon.
Wow.
It was just it was a magical day in so many ways. And the only thing that was missing from it for me was walking away with the trophy. But I got my own sort of trophy that we can talk about. And my caddy, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife. we've been married now for almost 24 years. It'll be 24 years coming up. And so, very, very lucky. I wouldn't always recommend marrying your caddy, but mine was perfect.
Millions watching on TV. You're 19, 15,000 or so people in attendance. The first 18, you're up 5. You got them by 5, which is itself already an amazing part of the story.
Yeah.
Now the second day comes. Walk us through, where you were the second day. You came out. And Tiger came out. As we all know, Tiger is, and explain where things went from a momentum perspective.
Yeah, it wasn't even a second day. We played the whole match in one day.
Sorry. Okay.
Crazily enough, most people don't play 30. The match was scheduled for 36 holes.
That's right.
And which is 2 rounds of golf. And most people don't play that much golf in one day.
That's
and
right.
nor should you. You probably tear your back up. But, we're walking the whole day. I mean, it's a 10, 11 hour day. And, the whole week itself that was the 7th day in a row of competition. Wow. By the way. So that tournament is very long. I illustrated in the book pretty well, but yes, it's such a grueling week, and you're just running on total adrenaline at that point, and all the great things that you've done to that point. And yes, I was 5 up. And it wasn't just 5 shots. For your non-golfers out there, I was 5 holes ahead. So each hole in a match play situation, what you see on the PGA Tour every week is mostly stroke play.
Right.
So you can pick up 3 shots on one hole.
That's right.
In match play, it's each hole is its own tournament. Each hole is its own little match. And so if I make an 8 and you make a 4, you only win 1 hole. So it's not so it's more than just kind of, what Tiger did in that comeback was just, it was kind of what he continued to do throughout his career, and his 82 PGA Tour victories and his 15 majors. That day was it was the jumping off point for him going into the professional world the next day. That was the Hello World and $40 million contract from Phil Knight at Nike. And
who was in attendance that day? Who was in attendance?
It was, 15 miles away from the campus there in Beaverton, Oregon, where the Nike headquarters are. So it was almost like it was absolute perfect fate for that moment to happen at that point, and then Nike just jumped on. You can't script so many things that happened that day.
For us non-golfers, and also for the golfers that are out there, because I'm sure there's a bunch of golfers watching now. Explain what happened on 16, though, with the famous words, and what happened on 16.
Yeah. So, I was 5 up after the 18 holes, and then I was still in the lead. I'd never trailed the whole entire day. I'm 2 up with 3 to play. And so if I could win this particular hole, it was the 34th hole of the match, the 16th hole on the course. And so if I could win this hole, I would win the U.S. Amateur, take history away from Tiger Woods on this stage that was just this monumental stage. NBC Sports was covering it. Dan Hicks, Johnny Miller in the booth. It was this amazing day, and it was on the West Coast. So you had this prime time, in a way, kind of golf audience watching. So, there was so much riding on this moment. And so anyway, we both hit our drives down there. I hit my approach in the greenside bunker, and he hit his drive. He was such a long hitter back then, and always will be known for that. Right. He hit it 53 yards past me off the tee. And so he had a sand wedge to the green. I had a 6-iron. So, you're going to get a sand wedge closer than a 6-iron. And he did. He spun his ball back off the hill, hit it to about 6 feet. Jeez. And so I'm in there, and I hit my bunker shot out. The best I could do was about 10 feet from the hole. And so I'm looking at the putt, and my putt breaks about a cup, which is 4.5 inches wide, about a 4.5-inch break from left to right. And as I'm reading this putt, his coin, his quarter, his ball marker is right in my line. And so what you can do, you can ask your playing partner to move the marker over so you can have a fair line of putt. And so I did, and I get up there and I made my putt for par, which forced him to have to make his birdie putt. Because if I would have missed this particular putt, right, I would have conceded that he was going to 2-putt from 6 feet. to win the hole. And so anyway, I made this great putt. I was under all this pressure. I was so nervous, and to perform a putt of that magnitude under that pressure in that moment, and to hit it as great of a putt as I did right in the middle. I mean, I was elated. I mean, the adrenaline just goes through your body. You don't even realize it until you're in that moment. So I'm walking off the green, and all of a sudden I see out of the corner of my eye that he's put his ball down on the ground in the wrong spot. And so in a match play situation, if you don't play your ball from where it was, right, because he moved it, if you don't play it from the correct spot, you automatically lose the hole. And knowing that I was 2 up, if I would have won the hole, I win the match. So the match would have been over in that instant. But here's the beauty of this story, right? And I think we can get into lots of topics about what happened and what's gone on in the world since of things that maybe people should do or shouldn't do. For me, golf taught me, and the first rule of golf, by the way, is to play with integrity. Right. And so playing with integrity was something that was in my DNA, was in my upbringing in the game as a junior. And now, not too far removed from being a junior golfer, only 19 at the time. I mean, it was this instinctive, reflexive action that just kind of blurted out of my mouth, hey, you got to move that back. And so he moves it back, and he ends up making the putt to win the hole instead of me, not saying something, and then him playing the wrong spot and losing the hole, and then the match right there. And then he went on to make a 35-footer on the next hole to tie the match, and then he won on the second playoff hole. So, but all of that could have changed history. I mean, maybe he doesn't turn pro right away, and this isn't to say that he wouldn't have gone and done all the great things that he did, but to think about the history. He turns pro. He wins 2 events in the fall in 7 events that he played in the fall. He won 2 of them on the PGA Tour right away, which got him into the Masters, which he won by 12 shots. So he would not have played in the Masters had he remained an amateur, had he turned pro and not won, because you forfeit that invite to Augusta. And so, it's just amazing how it all transpired. He wins the Masters and turns the golf world on its head 8 months after our match.
And as you and I know, in sports and in life, momentum matters. And that was the beginning of his momentum going in, as you said. How, one thing, I read the book word for word, many sections over and over again. A couple of things. One thing that your then caddy, now wife of almost 24 years, talked about in the afterword is that Tiger, since that day, he actually, when he puts his coin down, he actually chooses which side to put it on based upon if he has to move the mark back. Is that not correct? If it's up, he doesn't have to move it back. If it's down, tails down, he has to move it back. Is that true? That is correct. Yeah, that got around social media quite a bit actually in the last few years. Yes. So when he moves his mark over, because he always sits it heads up on a normal day, but when he moves his mark, he flips it to tails. Right. So he knows that he has moved it, and it doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, you want to make sure you remember it and put it back. And so I guess that moment, affected the way he marked his ball forever. You went in, first of all, when you talk about character and integrity and what you did with all that adrenaline running through your system, you really had what was second nature to you and become axiomatic. And let's just call it was part of your DNA to do the right thing. Integrity and character. Was that from mom and dad? Was that from partially mom and dad and some of your mentors like Ray Daly, who you talked about in the book? Where did that come from when you look back now on being such a tender age, but having such great instincts?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, certainly my parents were influential. My mom never really played the game, but my dad certainly got me into the game. And I think just being around golf, because as a young player, I was pretty good at an early age. So I would typically play with older kids. I would play with adults a lot. And so you with all of that, and then understanding what the game the bedrock of the principles that the game is based on, you just learn it, and you just know that that's what you do in golf. And this is why a super high pedestal as far as the level of integrity that you should have. Now we could, argue that with what's happened through the PGA Tour recently and whatnot, but I guess that'll play itself out. But for me at that moment and all the things that I learned, yes, it was certainly an important thing that I learned. I mean, my coach Ray Daly certainly helped me as well, and yeah, all those things were definitely factors.
That happened when you were such a tender age. You're still as the world goes. You're still a very young guy. You're 45 or 46-ish. And, so how, you and your wife and family members, but especially you and your wife have had, a lot of history behind you now to think about that moment. How often does this come up? Just organically through your head? And how often because you have a very active life as a very successful author, public speaker, and also as a broadcaster, how often do people ask you about that 96 match play?
Seems like every day, right? It seems like it's something that, it's funny being known best for losing, right? It's kind of a funny thing to say, but in life, and I talk about this a lot in my speaking engagements, right? The life is you're going to lose way more than you win. So you have to quantify, like, how do you win without winning, right? Like, how do you do that? And so after that moment, I mean, there were certainly some down times where, I was bummed out. I wish I would have won. But, when you give it your all, when you give everything you've got and you play the game by the rules, by the spirit of the game, no matter what game it is, for me, it was golf, you do those things and it's just, you can't be upset. You can't be, you can't second guess yourself because you did everything you could possibly do.
You left it all on the field and you also did it the right way. And as you said in the book, you can win in life without winning. And that's one of the reasons I had you on the show today, because, for our listeners and viewers, there's tons of life lessons in this book. It goes way beyond golf. This is for any golfer, non-golfer, father to son, mentor to mentee. This book has a lot of life lessons in it that we're going to go into. So, when you were thinking about all this, you and I were just briefly chatting off the air before we went live. One of the main reasons I was so excited to chat with you today, Steve, is I think your message is one that's perfect for the times that we live in that think about who has gotten headlines of recent years, the Elizabeth Holmeses and the meltdown of Theranos and Sam Bankman-Fried. And even if you go back a couple of years, Lance Armstrong, Sammy Sosa, countless politicians, we've put on display and almost glorified in almost a sickish way the meltdown of integrity and the meltdown of character and the domino effect of what that leads to, destruction of industries, destruction of fame, of fortune, and the loss of hundreds, if not billions of dollars for investors and things of that such. Is this what was part of your thinking when you went to write the book, or what was your main impetus?
Yeah, I completely agree. So many things have happened. I mean, if you just take sports, for example, right? That Sammy Sosa incident, I was actually at that game, which was very ironic, to say the least, with Lance Armstrong, Houston Astros, the New England Patriots, couple times, Spygate, Deflategate, the guys who got caught maybe a year or so ago putting weights in the fish so they could win the contest.
Right.
I mean, just yesterday I heard about the two tennis players overseas who got banned from the sport for life because they were match fixing. And so it's like, at what cost do you do these things, right? At what cost? I was watching with my kids last night, the old 1990s movie, Cool Runnings. The one with the Jamaican bobsled team, where the coach was saying, well, the story, he got kicked off the other team, or they got stripped of their gold medals because he put weights in the bobsled to make it go faster. And it's like, you're right. All these things that we hear in life, social media, all these stories that we see on the news, you're right. There is kind of a glorification of the negative. And, the positive stories, like if you watch the evening news, there's one positive story the last 3 minutes, right? That's all there is.
Right.
And the rest of it it's doom and gloom. And I was a communication major, so they always said, all these stories, they lead blood, if it bleeds, it leads, right? That's
right.
So
right.
it's like, it's kind of sad in a way. And so you're right. So when I wrote this book, and with my co-author, great writer in his own right, Trip Bowden, I got to give him a lot of credit as well. He's written some other books as well. And but he really kind of put the magic in this and the flow into it. But really, it was about, we wrote it during the pandemic. I mean, we put the formulation out there a couple months before the pandemic hit, to the publisher, and they approved it. And all of a sudden, the pandemic hits, and now we got all the time in the world to dive into these stories and really, really dig deep. And I think that's what we did so well in these stories, and really trying to, because there was so much bad happening at that time. I mean, there were so many uncertain things. I wanted a story that would be a reminder of what we were going through right then and there. Kind of here. This is the good side of life. This is the good side of sport. This is the good side of honoring your opponent, honoring your own integrity and your own beliefs, and staying true to yourself. I mean, that's a hard thing to do. And for whatever reason, I instinctively did it at that moment, where, it would have been pretty advantageous had I not. And
by the way, you said you didn't even, after you would hit the ball during that match play, you never looked back. That was the one time you glanced back when that mark was sitting in the wrong place. So therefore you felt that was imperative to say something, but you could have gotten a free pass if you never looked back, because no one would have you would have never even seen him. He would hit the ball and you never would have been looking. So no one would have ever held you to any standard, because there was no standard at that point. You just
that's a great point. I'm not sure that I even remembered it putting it that way, but you're completely right. That's exactly, because you're right. I didn't want to watch Tiger play,
right,
because he was so dramatically longer and more impressive physically off the tee and with his ball striking than I was. And so I didn't want to get caught up in his game. But that moment, you're right. I guess I hadn't thought about it that way.
For our listeners and viewers who've just joined us, we've got Steve Scott, the author of Hey Tiger, You Need to Move Your Mark Back. This book you can find on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, great bookstores near you. It's a great read. It's not only for golfers, it's for moms, dads, and anyone who's trying to teach or show the next generation the right way to win in life, and to do it with character and integrity. And Steve has written a real beauty here. He's also the founder of the Silver Club Golfing Society. Steve, let's talk a little bit about life outside of golf for you as life went on. Obviously, the PGA career didn't turn out to be what exactly you wanted it to be, but you stayed in and around the golfing world. You are a broadcaster. You started the Silver Club Golfing Society. Explain what the Silver Club Golfing Society is.
Yeah, I do wear a lot of hats. I'm a PGA professional. I represent the PGA of America.
Right.
I was a head pro at a kind of the traditional head pro role at a couple different clubs up in New Jersey and the New York area between 2009 and 2017. And after that, I founded, in conjunction with the Outpost Club, which is kind of our parent or sister society, I guess, if you will. We developed a amateur golf society for single-digit handicaps, so good players.
Right. And
we basically set up really fun, camaraderie-filled events at great venues all around the country, like an Inverness Club, like Prairie Dunes, like Ballyneal, like we've been to Pumpkin Ridge actually a couple of years ago as well. And, Oakmont, Oak Hill, I mean, you name it. We go to the cream of the crop, and we're very fortunate. But it's just a fun group of people who are, they're golf aficionados, but they love to travel and they love to compete a little bit. And it's just a fun time with a bunch of like-minded people. And for me, it's, some of these places I don't even bring my clubs. I don't really play all the time with them. And so, but I'm watching them
Right.
kind of go through the things that I went through as a competitor. And so
Right.
I think that's been the fun thing for me to do that. You mentioned the broadcasting. I've been doing a lot of work the last few years with PGA Tour Live and ESPN. And so that's been a ton of fun. And I love doing that. A director of instruction for Golf Week on their online platforms and dishing out golf instruction to the masses, which is really fun. And, doing a lot of public speaking engagements as well. So yeah, my time is definitely is spent all around the game and, with people who just love it.
For anyone who's been blessed to have 46 years on this planet, I mean, you have the same wife for 24 years, you have beautiful children, and you've got all these hats you're wearing. So it doesn't seem like you'd ever be bored at this point. I mean, although it didn't work out perfectly on that day in Pumpkin Ridge, it sounds like you're having a pretty good life there and you're on a pretty good run. So integrity and character really do add up a little bit to destiny, if you ask me. I mean, that's sort of one of the big messages I think we should all take out of your great book.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and I hope so. I hope it does mean something. And it may not get the major headlines everywhere, but I think it's definitely an important thing. And one of my inscription in the book, I really wanted to write this book not only for me, at this time in my life. I could have written it 30, 40 years down the road, but it was the 25th anniversary of the match is when it came out back a couple of years ago now. But I wanted to write it because I never wanted, I was picturing, 4 generations away from me. I'm long gone, and this story is easy to just get swept under the rug. And I wanted the future generations of my family and future generations of golfers to learn and understand that no matter where golf goes, no matter what happens in the game, like this is the core of golf. This is the essence of who I was, and the essence of what you should do in a moment like that.
There's some other great lessons. I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to come back to also Tiger Woods in a little bit, but there's other great lessons that you leave as breadcrumbs throughout your book. You do it so well, and it was really impressive. I want you to explain what you meant, though, to our listeners and viewers out there when you said you got to lose to learn how to win.
Yeah, I mean, I think winning in golf, again, you win very, very little. If you win once a year, no matter what level, pro, amateur, whatever, you're doing great if you win once a year, because you play against 155 other people typically in a full field event. And so yeah, I mean, you have to learn the lessons in defeat, and you go through a lot mentally. And you certainly learn more when you lose than when you win. But you have to learn that to get to the point where you want to get to, because it's when you win, I don't know, those things kind of get forgotten, I think. But when you lose, it's those stepping stones, those blocks, those life building blocks that you need to continue to get better.
All the GOATs always say over and over again, if you're going to take away just some common threads from all of them, that their rings are just the collected memorabilia from the wins, but they, in their mind, play over and over again on a continuous loop their mistakes and their losses. It's so interesting.
Yeah, no, you definitely learn from that, and it gets you better if you allow it to. Now, for me, I mean, my professional career was 6 years long. I had reasonable success on the Canadian tour, and I won a couple times out there. I got up to maybe 250th or 60th in the world at one point, but I just never had quite the success. I always wanted to win. I always wanted to compete. And as a pro, you have to be very comfortable finishing 40th or 50th. And I think my mindset just didn't really compute with that.
Talk about, though, when you talk about losing, but then there's also a line that you have in the book that's really brilliant. But I want you to explain to our audience how to get over it and how to help folks that we mentor or our children get over it as well. Broken confidence is a bone that never heals. How do you move forward when you lose confidence? Because we all have moments throughout life in anything that we're doing, relationships, business, financial, sports, that we lose our confidence. How do we get over that bone that never heals?
Yeah, I think it's something that always sticks with you for sure. I mean, it's something that if there was a big moment that happened, kind of like it did with me, where you didn't win, it can lead you down a bad path. I mean, for me, and you noted a lot of the successes that I've been having recently, and I've been just blessed. I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky, and but the things that let me see how I can put this. The things that happen when you don't have the success.
Let me put it to you this way. Let me put it to you this way. You could have ended up a very bitter person after Pumpkin Ridge.
Yeah.
But you focused on making yourself a better person, even better than you were there, where you showed the ultimate in character and integrity. You focused on having a better life in front of you, no matter what it brought.
Yeah, I had to, in a moment like that was so big, and when you get defeated, I mean, I could have totally broken me forever.
Correct.
I mean, I could have gone down a wrong path of, drugs, alcohol. I mean, lots of these things happen a lot to people.
This happens all the time. Let's be honest.
All of the time. And so for me, I chose, and this, goes back to the winning without winning sort of mentality, right? It's you have to take the good out of what you do every single time, because you are going to lose a lot. And so if it's easy to focus on the negative. The negative is that's the low hanging fruit that people tend to, just wallow in the mud about. They just hide themselves into a dark room sometimes, but you're going to have losses in your life. There's going to be things that happen, and maybe probably smaller than how it happened to me, but it's like, okay, if I'm going to be reminded about this thing for the rest of my life, if Tiger Woods ended up just continuing to be great, and every time somebody, they start asking me, hey, what's, I could have definitely gone down a bad path. But for me, yes, it's choosing the good out of it, because there is good in every situation if you look for it. And for me, there was so much good. There was 99% good and 1% bad. So why am I going to let that 1% kill my 99%, right?
Such a great way to be. I mean, talk about being way beyond your years. I don't know, including myself at 19, and I'm now 60. I don't know many people at 19 that would have that poise, character, and ability to push on at 19 after going through both the elation and electricity that you felt that weekend, but then also the end part of that situation as well.
Yeah. And maybe I didn't have it right away. I mean, it wasn't immediate. I tried. I think if you watch the YouTube, Roger Maltby is interviewing Tiger and me on the final green there, and asking Tiger if he's going to turn pro and whatnot. And you look at my face, and I was pretty satisfied with how I played. Like, again, I gave it everything I had.
Right.
And it was, it wasn't like I'm going to go crawl into a hole. I mean, it was, if you give it your all and you leave it all out there, you just have to say, okay, there's things in life that are meant to be. And there's so many things that I won that day. And so I have to look at it for that. I got more traction from finishing runner up in an event than most people get from winning. I mean, I got sponsor exemptions into countless tournaments. I got to play in the Masters. There's so many great things that happened because of that day. And so I have to, that's the only way I can look at it. And I got the girl. I got the girl.
Come on. One beautiful part about your book, I mean, your book was literally an essay in a magnanimous spirit. You were very open and frank about how shocked you were as a 19-year-old, of course, about how cool and aloof Tiger was that day, including not only during the play, and the other mental jujitsu he did with you during the 90-minute break, the bathroom break, and other things that go into making Tiger Tiger. But even after his win, instead of thanking you for the great match play or for saying, hey, Tiger, you need to move your mark, and being more of the gentleman that he obviously has become in later years, you were very open about the shockingness of how this affected you in the moment. But removed, you also left lots of space in the book, and so did your wife, Christy, for redemption. And you went out of your way to show how Tiger, unlike many others who go through things in life that are life-changing crises that he's gone through, seems to have come out on the other side a better person. Talk a little bit about that part of your journey and how you're able to remain so magnanimous and leave space in life for those who exhibit maybe poor character and integrity at certain points, but those are setbacks, maybe setting them up for a bigger comeback.
Yeah, I think what you're referencing, right, is the awards ceremony, particularly where I got up there and spoke first, and I said, hey, Tiger, you're an amazing opponent, and thanking the appropriate people at the club at Pumpkin Ridge and whatnot, and then I put the mic down. He comes up and speaks, and that feeling wasn't reciprocated of like, oh, hey, Steve, hey, thanks for giving me a solid for reminding me to move my mark, or
Right.
And he wasn't wired that way. He was super young, and I mean, he was 20 years old at the time, but I think mentally he was probably younger than that, because I think when you're, this isn't trying to knock him or anything, but like when you're so good at something, there's other things that are not going to be as good or developed. And he was a single only child, didn't have tons of friends, but golf was his thing, and him and his father were best friends basically. And so, I think his mental development, his social development was, I think it's caught up. I mean, listening to interviews that he's had, he's a different person, completely, 100% now. Now that everything has gone on, and the fact that he has children now, and but then at that moment, there was no, hey, Steve, thanks so much for reminding me. It was, his father taught him this cold-blooded mentality of, not really acknowledging your opponents or thanking them, or, and it was just kind of how he was wired. And so, so be it. And that's the way he was. But I have seen a different Tiger in the last 3 to 5 years, without question. And I think the world has.
And you chose in the book to not only tell the story about the, accepting the awards after the awards ceremony, but you could have chosen a million quotes. Tiger is a very well-quoted human being, obviously one of the most famous people on this whole planet of 8 billion plus human beings. But in the beginning of the book, you chose this quote: "Achievements on the golf course are not what matters. Decency and honesty are what matters." Tiger Woods. And in Christie's afterward, she basically said, Tiger called what Steve did a testament to what the game is all about. Mm-hmm. So you both left room for redemption and an afterlife to folks who went through some very, listen, as like I said, I don't play golf, but I'm a huge fan of the sport and a huge fan of folks who have achieved greatness. You've achieved greatness in your own way. He's achieved greatness. I think both of you have had tremendous lives after, the Pumpkin Ridge. But when you look back and it's been studied more, I mean, I think, as you point out, Tiger adopted a lot of his father's generational trauma. The father was some form of Green Beret or something in Vietnam, came back. The story goes he brought his girlfriend back a necklace of ears that he collected along the way, his necklace of ears that he had collected. And that was, part of the trauma that he endured in Vietnam. And then when you watch the HBO special of, I think about almost 3 years ago,
Yeah.
And it was when they talked about what Tiger basically saw as some form of normal behavior growing up. His father was a tremendous role model in many ways, but obviously was deficient in others. Like we're all deficient in some ways, but those were very big deficiencies that loomed large in Tiger's young life, it seems like. So, but what I love is that you leave room. You wrote a beautiful letter to him at the end of the book, and I think one of the things you left a lot of room for is somewhat akin to Ali and Frazier sitting down years later and really ribbing each other and having a good time. And even now, Schwarzenegger and Stallone doing the same when they were huge adversaries their whole career. Bird and Magic. You leave room for one day, hopefully sitting down with Tiger and catching up about 1996 in that match play.
I think it will happen at some point. Hopefully, we've got lots of life to live, and I do hope we can do it. That would be pretty amazing for sure to be able to do that. And I think it would probably put some closure on some questions that I have in my brain. And but yeah, I think it would just be pretty neat. It's amazing how time flies. I mean, in only a few more years, it'll be 30 years now, and so it's just I think we might as well go have a few beers and chat about it, right?
Why not? And it would be great television too. I think there's a lot of people that would love to listen to the play-by-play by you guys at this point in your lives, and just see there's something wonderful to seeing two tremendous adversaries, historical adversaries, be human to each other. There's so much fun to that. I've seen it with Ali Frazier, and even Stallone and Schwarzenegger are going through it now in their 70s. And I think, why wouldn't that happen? Why wouldn't that? I love what you say in the book. My life turned out better than I could have ever imagined. So did Tiger's.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. No, we definitely had he had more success on the course, and, maybe I've had more success off the course. So, whatever. It's, we've had very much, so many good things. I mean, look, we're talking about golf. We're talking about, these are first world, any problems that we have are first world problems. And, we definitely, we love the game, and, always be around it. And, I count my lucky stars for having my dad get me into the game, and because of all the great people that I've met and gotten to play golf with. And I mean, it's not just Tiger Woods. I played a practice round at the Masters with Jack Nicklaus. I even played golf with, let's see, you mentioned Larry Bird. I played with Gary Carter. I did some caddying. I caddied for Jack Welch and Rush Limbaugh, and I mean, just Gary Player. And I mean, I've been able to be around some really neat people, and I've been very, very fortunate just because of golf. I mean, and I bet you there's no other place you get to. People,
and I bet you there's a long list of people that wish they were a broadcaster on ESPN and also on the PGA Tour Live as well. We're going to shift from the book, and again, for our listeners and viewers, I really recommend you buying this book. You'll enjoy it if you're a golfing aficionado, sports aficionado, or just someone who wants to share more about just winning with character and integrity and living a life of character and integrity. This is a tremendous book. Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can find it at a local bookstore. To find Steve, you can go to stevescottpga.com. But Steve, let's move into a couple other topics.
One other thing, though, with the book, if you want to get it signed by me personally, movethatback.com. If you go on movethatback.com, you can buy the book right for me. I will sign it however you want me to sign it, and I'll send it to you personally. So
that's wonderful.
That's the only other ways you can't get it personally. So that's
great. Let's say so. It's movethatback.com.
Movethatback.com. That's it. It's really simple.
I love it. That we're going to do that, and let's go into a couple of other timely issues. Integrity and character. So, although I'm not a golfer, I followed very closely what was going on the last couple of years with PGA and the Live tournaments. So if I was a golfer, if I was one of the great golfers on the tour, I was offered lots of money, and some of them took it. And I'm not saying what's right and wrong, because I don't know enough about the politics of what's right and wrong, Steve. But what was fascinating to me is some of the folks took 50, 80, $100 million, God knows, I mean, life-changing generational money. And now a couple of weeks ago, the tours merge. So the guys who took the money and there's guys that turned down the money. Tiger turned down what, almost $1 billion or something close to that. It was reported between 700 million and $1 billion. A lot. Even for Tiger Woods, it's a lot of money. Yeah. So I don't understand a little bit the mechanics. So if I was one of the folks who took the money, and again, this doesn't cast any aspersions on any of those folks, did they get to keep the money and now they get to be part of the PGA again? Is this how this whole thing is going? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think enough people know what's going to actually happen with that and how the PGA Tour will now be in control of the Live Tour.
Yeah.
And who knows if this will even go through, and there's some antitrust thoughts out there and some things that they'll have to get by through the government. But yeah, I mean, you could they've talked about those people. They might have to, if they pay a fine to get back on the PGA Tour, that fine, it might help balance things out a little bit. Right. Their fine money might go to the other guys who remain loyal. There's infinite amount of ways this thing could go. And right. But it is, it was a little shocking when I heard the news a few weeks back, for sure. We just don't know quite enough to make informed decisions, I don't think. As
just someone who loves sports, and I love watching golf, I just hope it makes the sport better. Whatever that means at the end of the day, I just hope the sport gets bigger and stronger.
I think it will. It will.
That's exciting. Let's talk about another Stanford phenom, and her upbringing, where she is today, Rose Zhang. Talk a little bit about, Rose Zhang. I mean, today, she comes out of, she wins two Opens, amateurs back to back, and then wins her first major. I mean, not major, but wins her first tournament right out of Stanford.
Yeah.
Hasn't been done in 71 years or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, what she has done. Yeah. I hope the media will give her a little bit of a break if she doesn't, always continue to perform and live up to what her, former Stanford alum Tiger did. But she's got great potential, doesn't she? She won the Augusta National Women's Amateur. She won the NCAA. She won everything she had to and wanted to and could, basically, as an amateur. And now she's jumped off into her pro career, and she's got the golf world by her hand, right in the palm of her hands. It's pretty awesome to watch. She's
pretty fun to watch. I was watching a little bit this morning, and she was, I think, 2 under and only, in 5th or 6th place at her second tournament, I think the KPMG. So it's fun to have a new superstar on the horizon, a rising star. It just brings more great attention for all the right reasons to a sport that I know you love and you're great at, and a sport that needs even more attention with, I think, the youth of the world. Steve, we froze up there for a second.
You may have to repeat that for some way. I just lost you there for one second.
No problem. Repeat
that.
Yeah, this will be fixed in post. I think it's really great to have a young superstar on the horizon of, to draw more good and positive attention to a sport that needs more youth coming into it around the world. To have a Rose Zhang, I think that's really, it's great to see that again.
Yeah, it's awesome. It definitely energizes the golfing world. I mean, it's and to have it on the LPGA Tour, which needs, they need sparks like Rose Zhang to keep fueling their story and their message. I mean, women's golf is very powerful, and she's got a great opportunity to do a lot of great things in this game.
What's next for you, Steve? You wrote this book. You've got ESPN, PGA Tour Live. You've got the Silver Club Golfing Society. If you're also a public speaker and people want to hire you, can go to stevescottpga.com. What's next for you? You're very young still, and you have lots of years and fun ahead of you. What's some things on your mind that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I think just continuing to build the Silver Club Golfing Society up and keep meeting more people from all around the country and around the world and go travel to some amazing places. I'm going to go to Bandon Dunes for the first time this year over in Oregon. I'm going to go over to Scotland again to watch the Walker Cup at the Old Course.
Wow.
The home of golf. That's going to be amazing with our golf society. So I'm looking forward to that. Lots of public speaking opportunities, and I'm getting into the corporate space quite a bit now, and would love to continue to do that as well. I'm going to speak in a group of over 500 people in Nashville at the end of July at the Farm Bureau Insurance Agents Convention. So that's going to be really awesome. Just continue to spread this message of good, right? This is kind of my story, and to tie it in with having integrity and showing courage in a moment where it was challenging to do so, honestly, and with all the pressure that I was under, especially as such a young person, and just showing people how you can win without winning, and how to really how do you do that, and just kind of teach people that you're going to lose, but how can you quantify your own personal success no matter what the outcome is? I think that's a thing that everybody can try to grasp onto. And so I think that, whether it's in the corporate world, the business world, the sporting world, I mean, you're going to lose. You're going to lose deals. You're going to lose rounds of golf. You're going to lose games. It's just going to happen. And so you have to, for your own sanity, I think you have to understand and learn, how you can quantify and how do you figure out what you did so well, and turn every situation into a positive, as opposed to looking at the easy side, which sometimes is the negative.
Steve, we're going to continue to follow your great career, and for our listeners and viewers out there that want to find Steve or hire him to come speak at one of their upcoming events, go to stevescottpga.com. If you want to get a signed book, moveitback.com.
Move that back.
Move that back. Sorry. Movethatback.com. Hey, Tiger, you need to move your mark back. Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, other great bookstores. Movethatback.com. You'll get an personally inscribed book by Steve Scott. Steve, it's just, your message is so universal. It's so timely. I wish you continued success. Not only in life and in marriage and as a father, but in all the professional endeavors you take on. Honestly, the reason why I had you on the Impact Podcast is because the world needs more Steve Scotts, and I hope they become more of them, and you continue to inspire our next generation to become the next generation of Steve Scott. So thank you so much for spending this time with us today, and thank you so much about all that you've done in messaging the good word.
Well, that means a lot. I really appreciate your sentiments, and we'll just continue to keep spreading that good word. Thank you.
This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Closed Loop Partners. Closed Loop Partners is a leading circular economy investor in the United States with an extensive network of Fortune 500 corporate investors, family offices, institutional investors, industry experts, and impact partners. Closed Loop's platform spans the arc of capital from venture capital to private equity, bridging gaps and fostering synergies to scale the circular economy. To find Closed Loop Partners, please go to www.closedlooppartners.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com.